You are listening to Arts on the Air, a bi-weekly-ish interview show dedicated to Savannah, Georgia's artists, musicians, and authors. Each episode will feature a guest in conversation about their philosophy, practice, and current projects, as well as their thoughts on the state of the arts in our community of Savannah. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanow, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio. Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I have the pleasure of sitting with local artist Carmen Aguirre today. Welcome, Carmen.
Hey, welcome, Tamara. Welcome, everybody.
It's lovely being in Carmen's light and art-filled house. I will go ahead and start and read a little bit of her bio from her website. Carmen is a figurative painter working in oil on canvas and/or panel. While she represents scenes of daily life, her objective is also to convey how the subject touches and inspires her. Lovely. So we'll go ahead and start. You look like you were mainly raised in Miami.
I was born in Miami.
You were born in Miami? Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were just talking about your progression of school, how you first got a BFA in Fine Arts, and then you went abroad and did some independent painting study in Spain.
It was, I guess it would have been the equivalent to a master's degree here. I did it in Spain.
Yeah.
With a fabulous professor from Valencia. And it was, I had just finished my BFA in Miami. I thought I was hot stuff. I had done intaglio, printmaking, this and all sorts of things, photography. And I thought I was like hot. I was big. I'm going to Europe and I'm going to show them. Well, probably the European studies should have been done first because they start off traditionally.
Okay.
I didn't get any of that here. When I went to school, they were more into expressing yourself and all these things, and left the traditional things aside.
Not in the representational drawing and painting?
No.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that they had me do was to reproduce a plaster Greek statue. I had never done that in my entire life. And everybody turned around and looked at me like, let's see what this hot American girl is going to do. It was embarrassing. I was embarrassed. It was humiliating. It was humbling. And it was my learning experience. I still have I finished it.
Yeah.
And I still have it here. Yeah, I still have that piece here rolled up. But it was a great experience. And so I went into studying traditional painting and the traditional form of painting with your plumb line, measuring, looking, color, and all of this. And
so I was doing life studies and still lives, things like that.
And still lives and all of that. And then, as my professor has said, who loved me and I loved him, but he was very tough, he said, you cannot deconstruct without knowing what you deconstruct. All that you did in the States is wonderful, but you didn't know what you were doing. Until you know what you're doing, then you can do it.
It was more conceptual, your BFA, as well?
Yeah. It was a lot more. I still always had an inclination for figurative painting.
Oh.
I always did. I loved, the little corners, the little shadows and figures and shapes. I always liked that because you even look around my house, every little thing has a story to it. And that's what I would like about still lives or even landscapes.
That professor that you went to study with in Spain, how did you choose him specifically? There was something about him that you went to study with?
Actually it was my father. He did a lot of travel in Spain, did a lot of work in Spain, and it was through a friend of his that he said, my daughter would like to go study in Spain, do you know of anybody who has an atelier? Because that was very typical in Europe and in Spain too, where she could do studies.
Yeah. And
he said this would be the perfect person for her. I know him, we'll do the connection. And that was it. As it turns out, it was the exact person for me.
Yeah.
Because he did see potential in me.
It was just a really hard start.
It was a very hard start.
Yeah.
I will never forget the day that he came in and said, "You are a painter."
Yeah, because it sounds like your BFA, you had dabbled in all these different forms.
You were creating, you were experimenting,
Yeah.
you were trying things, which was wonderful. You were learning all of these techniques, learning about other artists and about other things, but there was no base. There was no base,
Yeah.
and you didn't do it. They had done away with it at that time. There was no base of discipline, of drawing, of painting, or this.
Right.
There really wasn't. It was all go out and create, which was wonderful. So the ideal thing would have been had done the basic first, the
Yeah.
traditional first,
Yeah.
and then go do.
Yeah, all the foundational things about drawing and learning
Yes.
perspective.
Yeah,
and
that's the word,
shading
foundational and all
yeah.
that. You didn't, to study about color, about shape, about form, about the point, about measurements, distance, because the truth is, Kandinsky said, everything, and I love his quote, everything starts from a point.
Yeah.
And it's true, when you start laying your lines for a painting, everything does start from a point, and the thing is to find that one point that you're going to pick that everything is going to come from.
Isn't there another, is it Kandinsky or somebody who said, there's another quote that's like, a line is a dot that's gone for a walk?
There's somebody else, but
Yeah.
Kandinsky in his thing, he wrote a book on the spirituality of art, had said that everything had, and it was like, since I was at that time doing the plumb line and doing the measurement, and when you do your plumb line, you are finding the point. Where is the point? This is the point. This is the line
Right.
that everything's going
The place
to go
that it
from.
emanates from.
Uh-huh.
Well, that must have been so exciting to be in Spain in your early 20s.
Oh
Doing grad
gosh,
school.
it was.
Would have
It
been
was.
wonderful.
Oh gosh, it was really exciting.
Yeah, what a great life.
Yeah, it was great.
And then did you come back to Miami kind of as soon as you were finished with that school?
I stayed a little bit,
Yeah.
and then I would return for several times, during, for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And until, your life changes, and my professor passed away. And, you
Do you mean like while you were there or more recently?
Oh, more recently.
Okay.
And but yeah, it was I would say it was a couple of years.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a couple of months, it was a couple of years.
So did you, as you went through that school, did you, by the end of that program, were you like, you wanted to be a figurative painter, you were doing this classic European style with landscapes and portraits and still lifes, is that where you were going?
Well, that's an interesting question,
Yeah.
because I never doubted what I wanted to be. I never thought of it in terms of I'm going to be an artist. It was always something that I always wanted to do. My father had collected files of my little drawings and things. I always did it. So my continuing studies in Spain was just a continuation of what I was going to do.
Yeah.
You have to understand something else. When I was growing up, when I went to school, we didn't think in terms of how are you going to make a living.
That's so interesting.
No,
Yeah.
we did not. I mean, in my mind, it was sort of like the book, A Lust for Life. You were going to live in a farmhouse or at the top of the barn and just paint and create and go outside and just eat bread, cheese, and drink wine. You never thought about
Yeah.
mortgage. You never thought about health insurance or...
What era is it? Is this like 70s, the 80s? Where are you,
Yeah,
where are you
somewhere.
talking?
Yeah, we're going to get around there. No, I'm not
Like, what
embarrassed
a
about-
magical era to think
Yeah,
about.
yeah. No, we're talking. I grew. I was born in 1955.
Okay.
So I'm going to school. We're talking about going to school in the 70s and 80s. You just didn't. You didn't think about that. You didn't go to art school to earn a living. You went to art school because it was a calling inside of you. It was your gut saying you have to do this.
Yeah.
But you didn't think this is how I'm going to make a living.
Yeah, interesting.
It was just a little bit later, not too far behind me, friends who were younger than I was, that as I graduated and moved on and they were still in college, that the thing about how are we going to live
that
came
cultural
about.
Shift.
Came about.
Yeah.
But prior to that, art was something that was innate in you. It was a calling inside of you, and you did it without even thinking.
Yeah. So your memories of yourself in that era, you weren't like bogged down or plagued with trying to look ahead and thinking about where it was applicable professionally and all that.
No. It was just simply a matter of creating.
Yeah.
What am I going to create? What am I going to do? What am I going to perfect? How am I going to express this? How am I going to interpret this?
Yeah.
Finding things and making something out of it. So that's what it was. It wasn't until, much, much later in life that you said, oh, okay, so I need to do something else, but still do my art.
Right. And then when you came back to the U.S., did you, for the whole time until you moved to Savannah, were you in Miami the whole time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was.
I traveled a lot,
right?
But that was home base.
So you were there in like the 80s and the 90s. That must have been so exciting. It's like this high time in our cultural imagination of Miami in the 80s. Like music.
What was really weird though was coming back to Miami to visit, because I was there in Spain for a couple of years.
Yeah. And
the music had changed, and all of a sudden people were listening to disco, and you're going, huh?
Yeah.
What happened?
I mean, Miami would be like clubbing and fashion and late nights and cars, right?
Yeah, so that was going into it a little bit. I mean, you get into it and all that, but honestly, in my core, you will not find in any of my music collection anything remotely associated to disco or that area, because
or new wave.
It was maybe a little bit of new wave.
Yeah, because you would have been young. You were still in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah, but definitely the disco part was like, nothing. No.
Were you into clubbing? Was that your thing?
A little bit, but I did that mostly in Europe.
Okay.
We did some clubbing here, but we were kids,
It seems like your kind of early life that you did a lot of work in arts nonprofits, like especially childhood education.
Yeah.
That's the direction you went in. Were you still painting also in your spare time?
Always. I never stopped painting.
Yeah.
I may have painted less, but I never stopped painting. And there something also that to me was really important. I never stopped seeing. So if you can't paint at that moment or draw at that moment, and I'm not really a drawer at all. I'm a more painter.
Okay.
Seeing is an exercise, and that's how I maintained it, by seeing. I would look away. I would look at a color, then I'd look away and go back and see that color, and then say that color I would make with this, and this. This has more blue. I never stopped seeing the.
And like you said, you're more of a painter than a drawer. Do you not do an underdrawing first? Do you just go right into painting?
No, I do an underdrawing first. Okay. I do a quick underdrawing first. I think I'm not patient enough to do.
Yeah.
And I say this saying that I'm also a very slow painter, but I'm not patient enough to draw.
To do a really elaborate drawing.
No, I don't. I just don't have the patience.
Have you always done oils, or have you dabbled around in different kind of paint?
I've dabbled around. Oils is my basic. But I've dabbled in watercolor.
Yeah.
I tried acrylics, not my thing. Watercolors is I do enjoy watercolors. I'm not great at it.
Yeah.
But
just to whip out some fun, like fast little things.
Yeah, little things.
What is it that you love about oil painting?
I just love the whole thing. The way they, what you can do with them, the way they mix. I love the way they smell.
Yeah. The fumes.
The whole thing, that nothing like coming home and saying, linseed oil.
What kind of additives do you like to use for yours? Because everybody has different
linseed oil.
They like. Okay.
I like linseed oil.
Okay.
And do that. I mean, once in a while I've done with impasto, but you have to open the window with that.
Yeah.
Because it can get pretty bad.
Are you somebody who works on multiple pieces at a time?
No,
okay.
I am not. I become hyper focused on what I'm working at the moment. Sometimes I would love to sit down and work on several pieces because I see other artists do that, but I think that's I just can't keep my focus on several things.
Yeah.
So I go back to the one piece.
Yeah.
When once I start getting consumed with a piece, that's it.
I think about that with reading, where some people can juggle multiple books at the same time. I don't have the kind of memory where I can go back to multiple books and remember what was happening in that one particular book.
So no, I can't. Yeah, I would say I'm the same way too. And plus, my process is the beginning part where the quick drawing thing is I don't mind that at all when I start plotting where everything is going to go. The part I detest the most is probably your base painting, your underpainting, because that's where I do all of my thinking. This is where the values are going to go. I may change during the whole entire process, and like the painting behind you, did end up changing a couple of times.
Yeah. But for you, it's almost like the underpainting is your elaborate drawing.
That is, to me, the whole thinking process. Everything is there, and I get really lazy about that because it requires work. I'm conscious about what I am doing there. Once that is done, I love it because then it's your subconscious working. And a lot of times I will finish something and turn around and not really recall the entire process because you just let go.
Yeah. I was going to ask you whether you enjoyed, the beginning of it or the ending of it. Which part of it was hardest for you to get into?
The beginning.
Yeah.
The beginning.
Do you have a particular color you always use for your underpainting, or does it depend?
So this is what I do. I paint everything quickly first. I will do a couple of things. A lot of times I'll take like a burnt sienna and do the whole, cover everything up with the burnt sienna.
That seems very classic European.
But there's a reason for it, because let's say you put down one color, and if you put down I go dark to light. If you put down a dark color against white, it will affect the way you will do the other color. So what I do with underpainting, let's say I didn't do the burnt sienna, I will quickly fill everything in color, block everything out real fast. And that's not going to be so much my thinking process, but there's a little bit thinking so that there is no white.
Oh, yeah.
That there is no white that will affect you.
The blank canvas part throws you off.
Yeah, it will throw off how you place your coloring, at least to me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I had written down, you were in Miami for quite a long time, and Art Basel started in 2002. Would you go to that from the beginning? What was the feeling about that when it first started?
Oh, it was pretty exciting. Yeah. I think I went for the first 10 years of Art Basel. Went every year. It was really exciting because they were bringing down. It's much different than what it is now.
Oh, okay.
There weren't that many satellite exhibitions back then as there are now.
Okay.
Around town. So it was a smaller space. You got to see so many things and all that. Around that time also, you had other art shows going on in January, Art Miami, which brought in Latin American art. And that was done in January, and that was spectacular too. So Art Basel was a really good thing for Miami. It was exciting.
Yeah.
And then it was a thing to go see people.
Did you always, when you lived there, did you have other friends who were artists as well?
Oh,
did
absolutely.
Did you kind of have a whole community?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did people you'd gone to art school with stick around in town and you still knew them?
To an extent. To an extent. Some did. A lot of them moved, which is to be expected. A lot of people moved out.
Yeah.
But some of us have reconnected through social media.
Oh, that's cool.
But then Miami had a lot of galleries, lots of galleries and different pockets. Like there was the group of galleries that were in the Miami Beach area, or different Coral Gables areas. So there were a lot of pockets of gallery, and through there you started to meet other artists also. Don't forget that prior to Art Basel, there was a place called Coconut Grove, and Coconut Grove was the hub for art and artists.
That's one of the biggest, fanciest art fairs in the country still, right? For people who travel around the country, like on the road.
Oh, still. Oh,
yeah,
no,
it's like the big one.
But even before you had the Coconut Grove Art Fair, all the artists lived. The art movement going on in Coconut Grove was tremendous. And all of these artists, to make a living, were professors at the University of Miami, at Barry University, at Miami, Miami-Dade College. But you're never a prophet in your own land. So where did they all show and sell? In New York, in Chicago, in Philadelphia, until, and people would go by there when it was like, hey guys, you've got it here in your own hometown.
That's just funny. So like New York was showing Miami artists, and then in Miami you're showing New York artists?
Yeah. But, I mean, that's all changed. We're talking way back
Yeah, it was
now.
way back. Were you, at this time, all these years, were you showing your work in public too?
I was showing my work in public. There was an area called Lincoln Road, and Lincoln Road had a lot of studios at that time, and galleries, and I was would be showing there. And then life happens, and you have to get a job.
Yeah, you go through different waves, I know, of when you have time enough to devote to different things.
Yeah.
I saw on your site you came to Savannah in 2016.
Uh-huh.
Did you know anybody here? What
gosh.
brought you here?
I knew people here. I was very familiar with everything here. I have a daughter that lives here.
Oh.
And it's coming up to close to 20 years. If not there already.
Yeah.
And so I would come up here frequently, and through her, I started meeting people.
Yeah.
So when I move up here, I had a job already at the mansion on Forsyth Park.
Okay. So for years, were you gallery director, gallery manager?
I started off as a gallery consultant, and then I was the gallery director.
Okay. That's how I met you first. You were like this institution at the mansion art gallery there.
And I did the curating for, in the hotel and all that. So it was,
Big job.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
It was great.
So you moved here having this like cool job already to arrive to.
Yeah, and I didn't plan it that way. I thought I'll move up here, continue looking for a job, and in the meantime, I'll do touristy things that I didn't do when I would come up and visit my daughter.
Yeah.
Because it was mostly to be with her and all that.
But you would delve more into Savannah.
Yeah. I came up here, and the day after I moved up, well, wait a minute, I went in for the interview of when to start. So the one who greets the truck with all of my stuff coming from Miami is my daughter, and ends up putting everything away because I was dressed and at work.
Oh, are you going to start immediately?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was dressed and at work.
How was it? That must have been a cool way to just meet. I mean, you have tourists coming through the gallery all the time, but you right away are just meeting all these local artists. That must have been a really fun way to be intro to Savannah.
Yeah, it was great. And like I said, I was already familiar with a lot of people in Savannah, so I didn't feel totally disconnected. And then a lot of things I did is just simply, call up people on the phone and say, hey, we are here, would you be interested in doing this or doing that? And that's how I started.
Do you usually, when you paint, is it, do you like paint on plein air, or do you like to take photos and then come back to your studio? What do you like to do?
I happen to like setting up still lifes. I happen to like plein air. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I do take photographs to work on it afterwards. I always then end up fidgeting things around on my own and just saying, I'm going to put this light in, or I'm going to put
Yeah.
that in, or I'm going to put this color in, even though it wasn't exactly there.
Right.
But the main reference will come from nature.
Like to balance the composition as you're going through the
Yeah.
painting.
Or just whatever, for some reason. I mean, there's some painting here from my series of Daffin Park that one day I looked at it and I was like, where did that violet come from? And somewhere along the way, I must have decided that next to that green, I'm going to put this violet in there.
Yeah, I was wondering if part of you being new to town was like going out around the city and either setting up shop and doing your paintings or like taking photos all around. And it's a fun,
It's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
I didn't really do it. I think a lot of it was also being a little embarrassed.
Yeah. Some people are okay with being in public in the park and everybody looking over your shoulder and making little notes to you. I hate that.
I met Dana Richardson in Forsyth Park.
Oh.
She had her easel out there, probably 2016, somewhere around there. And I was walking my dog Butters, and I was like, oh, look, a plein air painter. I'm going to say hello to her and start, introducing myself to artists around here, except that Butters was going to pee on her easel. So I had to move him away. And then after he peed, I was like, this is ridiculous. And I moved back and, turned around and said hello to her.
I love that.
Yeah.
You had a meet cute.
Yeah. So, but would I love to be able to set up an easel? I think I'm too self-conscious about people walking around or standing behind you or anything like that.
Because people make little comments and want to talk to you the whole time. And if you're not someone who can laser focus in, then you end up stopping what you're doing to talk to people. And I'm not the best at it.
Yeah.
I
don't.
She's brave.
Oh, and she's fabulous, and
Yeah.
she's great too. So she's an artist who can do that safely.
I guess so that makes sense now that she's done a lot of murals and outdoor murals in the years since. So I guess that was a good intro to her for painting in public and people making comments. So yeah. Has your painting, like since you've been in Savannah, have things changed for you as far as your subject matter or your working process or anything like that?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
If you ask me how, I'm not exactly sure, but the answer is yes. I experiment with different styles. I don't think that one should always... I think it's okay. I think it's good to experiment with styles. I think sometimes you're in different moods. Sometimes, like when you're in the mood to wear this dress or this shirt or whatever, it's in painting also. You have different styles, but I think that if you put it all together, you can say, I can see this is all the same person who did this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially when somebody's been doing art for quite a long time, to be able to look back through the start and go through the different styles, and you see this like slow progression, especially if when you first started and when you are doing something now, there's a big change. But usually you can go through the years and you can see slowly that somebody moving around little bits and
I think that you can look at my painting now and compare it to other pieces from earlier on and find it a little bit thicker than before. Just a lot of different things. I'm not so afraid anymore about combining different styles in one painting.
Yeah, like your paintings might be more textured at this point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You also, and with your job where you're sitting in a gallery looking around at art all the time, I think you never know. You're just looking at one little thing and it just knocks something loose for you. You're like, oh, I'm going to try that.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is I look at other people's work and I admire other people's work, but I don't take it any further than saying I'm going to experiment with that.
Yeah.
When I'm in the middle of painting or I'm about to start a whole series, I don't look at other people's work because I don't want to be too influenced with what I'm seeing or what's in galleries or not in galleries. But that said, I loved sitting in the gallery and looking at other people's work, never thinking in terms of what I was going to do or what I would like to do, except maybe for the framing, because I'm a terrible framer.
Oh,
horrible.
Was that part of your job there, was to help the artist?
No, sometimes, no, not really. No, it wasn't. But I would sit there and go, that's an interesting frame. Oh my God. That's when I would say sometimes, I'm going to try that frame. Yeah. Oh, look, they did this frame with that frame, because I am a horrendous framer.
Really?
Yeah. For my own stuff, terrible framer.
Where do you go for framing now? What do you like to do?
Friedman's.
Okay.
Yeah.
I worked for them for a couple of years when I was just out of SCAD. When they were downtown. I loved it.
Oh gosh, okay.
Yeah. I worked in the matting room, and so I learned all these like very high-end matting techniques, like doing fillets and fabric wrapped mats and things.
And all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're great. I love them. Yeah. And I feel real comfortable with their choice, with their suggestions and all that.
That's so
because
cool.
I just really, it's sort of like, I'm the last person for myself to say, this looks good on me. I can't see that.
Yeah.
So it's the same with my paintings, the frame. I can't see that.
Now, are all your paintings framed, or do you ever just have things unframed? Is that...
I would say the last thing I do is frame. So most of the things I have are really unframed.
That's like I feel like a classical, more traditional way of thinking of a painting always has to have a frame on it, right?
A painting should always have a frame on it. I don't dislike a painting without a frame on it.
Yeah.
Usually I will run to put a frame on it if it's going to be hung somewhere. And then I'll go run and put a frame on it. Otherwise, I sort of like it without the frame and let the person who's going to purchase the piece put the frame in.
Right.
Sort of removes the burden of, for me of, deciding on a frame for it.
Yeah.
And, let's face it, frames are expensive.
But if you're ever showing your art in public, you feel like you always want it to be framed when you hang it up.
Yes. Do I always do it? No.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know better. I should, but sometimes I've just been like, paint the sides.
How is your whole process since moving to Savannah, of getting out into the art scene and getting your work up in different venues? How did that all go for you over the years?
So it's been sort of difficult because I've been working full time. So it makes it a little bit difficult. I think I would like to dedicate more time to that this year than in other years, but a lot of it has just been through word of mouth. I had a show at the JEA.
Oh yeah.
Which was really good.
How many pieces did you have for that?
I think I had 25
That's a lot,
pieces
yeah.
for that. So that was really a lot. I really didn't know what to expect. I assumed that I needed to fill up the whole space, and then in retrospect now I think, if I were to do it again there, you don't need to fill up the whole space.
Okay.
And I probably would have had some more serious pieces had I done less. But I did pretty well.
How do you mean by serious pieces?
I think some pieces that I had there I may have done a little quickly to hurry up and fill up space. But they're good pieces. They were good pieces.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you feel that if you didn't spend enough time on the piece that it's not serious.
Interesting.
And that's a fallacy, because you can do a really good piece in a really short period of time.
Yeah. Was the show that you had there, was it all around a certain theme?
Yes,
Okay.
I had been working on mangroves, so it was really a lot of landscape.
Oh.
So
Is that a Florida tree? What exactly?
mangroves? Yes. So no, it's a tropical, and they are starting to come up as the climate gets warmer. I think that they're coming up through. Did somebody say almost close to up the coast?
They're creeping up the coast.
Up the coast, yeah,
Okay.
but they will save the coast.
Okay.
So it's an interesting tree, though.
Yeah, I'm picturing it's almost not palm, but like these fronds, right?
Well,
Like
they
green
don't.
stalks of
Mangroves
fronds.
don't have fronds, but what they do is they have a lot of almost like tentacles.
Okay.
So they grow. So they're in salt water, but mangroves don't grow in salt water. What they do is that they suck the salt out of the water and filter the water, and that's how they grow. So they're in salt water, but they filter the water that they use to grow in.
Okay, they filter out the salt and then they just take in the fresh water.
Yeah.
Huh. How did you come upon that as your subject?
Oh, I lived behind state park, Alita State Park, and it was all a whole mangrove state park. So I saw different types of mangroves, and I watched these things. I watched them. They're like the way they grew. They were really interesting. It was just really interesting.
I had a couple of pieces when I looked at your website, and we should say, so you've said to me that your website isn't super up to date as far as art. You want people to look at your Instagram more, your most recent paintings.
But you have to go through the whole Instagram thing because I have it mixed there with dog photos and personal and stuff like that.
So on your website, there were a few pieces that I guess now knowing this were from that mangrove series, and I wanted to ask you because the titles are cool. There was one that was of these sort of tree trunks, and it was called Legs, and then another one that looks like it's sort of a knot or like a joining part in the plant, and it's called The Conductor. And I like these titles. I didn't know if you had any thoughts about. I like titles that are a little bit like 1 degree kind of abstracted from what the piece is. It's kind of a conceptual title.
And that's exactly, a lot of times that's how I look at things. It might be realistic, but the thought is conceptual to me. And that's where the titles come out.
Did you, I guess in the years you've been in Savannah, you've been in some group shows at Location Gallery? Is that one of your main places?
Location and Roots Up.
Oh, we talked about that.
And then Roots
how
Up.
Cool that was.
Yeah, and that was really cool. And I stayed with it until even when it went online.
Yeah.
So
was it during COVID or a little before?
They went online. Leslie had to take it online because of COVID.
Yeah. I saw on your website you have your list of exhibitions that in 2018 you were in a group show in Montreal.
Yeah.
Cool. How did that come about?
So I have a friend who is Canadian, and she ended up she opened up a gallery in Montreal. I was really honored because she's very particular. Just because you're her friend doesn't mean she's going to ask you to participate in a show if she didn't think that your work was good. So I was honored when she asked me to participate in the show. And the funny thing about it is that my piece was placed next to a professor of mine, and whose work I absolutely, Lisa Parker Hyatt, whose work I absolutely love. And I was like, oh my God, how funny is this? Here is the professor and here is the student.
Wow, just total coincidence.
The way it was hung, the show was hung, it was like, oh my God. I didn't even know that her work was going to be there.
Did you go to the show or did you see photos of it?
I ended up not being able to go to the show, but I did see photos of it. And then Lisa, my professor, wrote me and said,
you got back in touch, professor.
We never lost touch, and it's really funny because she was my professor in college. And in thinking about it, she wasn't that much older than we were. She was just out of grad school.
Oh. Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So you're now you're peers. Yeah.
Now we're peers. And back then it was perspective, We looked at them as like, older hit teachers. And, and until you realize like, wait a minute. You're not that much.
She was just a few years older.
You're just a few years older.
What was your piece that you had in that show?
It had to do with water. I forget what it was. It had to do with water. And I had seen a Life Fest, the round bubble kind, orange in the water.
Those inflatable
things in the water. And I turned it into an orange LifeSaver. So it is when you look at it, it says you can read LifeSaver on it like the candy. So it's the candy LifeSaver floating in the water.
Yeah.
So
it even also a vest. Once you fasten it, it's a round thing, and your body goes in the middle of the hole. So it is
so it was a LifeSaver. It was a LifeSaver candy.
That's cool.
I found something the other day that still had the orange stuck on it because I went and bought myself LifeSavers. And put the LifeSaver there to get the right orange. Orange is a difficult color to paint, as is green and red. But I had these LifeSavers all over the place.
You just found one the other day.
And I was like, I was looking at it. It was sort of sticky. I was like, what the? And then I went, oh my God, I think this is one of those LifeSavers.
It's that many years old.
Yeah. It was like, from 2018, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Does your friend still have her gallery?
No, she ended up after COVID. The same that happened to many galleries.
And how many years did you work at the mansion?
Till it
sold.
Even after it sold. I stayed on with the owners until they closed it. Till about a year and a half ago. I think we reached the 2-year mark that it's closed.
Oh,
I think so.
Have you gone in there since it's renovated, or would it be too weird to look at that space?
No, actually, I was talking to somebody the other day. I should go in, and because I know I'm very friendly with the people who bought it and renovated, and I feel like I need to contact them first and say, hey, I'm going, because they've invited me, so I don't want to just show up. They've been very gracious and all that. So I just would like to let them know. Also because I'd like for them to show me around all the places that I knew to see how they were changed and done.
Yeah, that would be cool to get all the insider details about.
Because I knew the ins and out of that building.
That's cool, yeah.
The ins, I mean, I had been in the attic, I had been in the mezzanines where you would store things, so I knew the stories and...
It's fascinating. It's a huge, vast building. I can't imagine.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I knew the old part and the new part.
Yeah. There used to be, years ago, when I first moved to Savannah, I had a friend who would sing jazz. And there was a restaurant, it was almost like in the little side building, like a turret, where you go upstairs and there was a bar that she would sing in there, and they would use it all the time as this cute, like...
Oh, yeah. There used to be a bar there.
Yeah, they seem like they don't really use that space anymore for some reason.
Well, they have now, if I understand correctly, it's sort of like a club. It's a membership thing, and that's what they use the space for. But prior to... there was a bar upstairs, and lots of people will tell you, I met my husband there, or we used to, when we were dating, we would go there.
Yeah.
They would have jazz, they would have all sorts of things up there. It was a big bar, there was a piano.
Very classy.
It was
fancy.
Very classy.
And also, I would say at this era when this happened, it was way before Savannah was so touristy, and there were much fewer like nice fancy cocktail bars, so at the time it really stood out.
And plus,
they don't really
Richard Kessler's had a vision, and his taste is eclectic, and some can say he knew how to mix things, and you could go in there and say this is a bit much or whatever, but you had to say it works.
He was a maximalist, right?
Yes, it works. I mean, you just have to say this. Yeah, this works.
I always heard so much about every single room in that hotel had lots of original paintings hanging up.
Uh-huh.
What did they do with all those paintings that came down?
So a lot of them were Kessler took back because a lot of them were his own.
Yeah.
Were his own, and then the rest was sold with the building.
Okay.
And what they did with it, I would assume they were sold.
Interesting.
At one point, I think they were selling the furniture too, but they were big pieces.
Yeah,
I mean, they were really big pieces,
and they had like big elaborate frames and everything.
Oh gosh, yes. So yeah, but they were big pieces. But the stories you can tell. We had great openings there.
Yeah,
great openings.
I remember. Yeah, outside of the gallery, there was that other little
bar.
Yeah, there was a piano, and there were a couple of big paintings, and then when you kept going, there was that hall of fancy hats that I loved as well.
Yeah,
that was so random.
And that was Richard Kessler. He had these ideas that seemed so random, but he made them work.
Yeah,
he made them work.
Beautiful. This hallway leading to the bathroom that was just all these hats behind glass. It was like multiple different big windows of fancy historic hats.
And they were I think 100 years worth of hats.
And everybody who's gone through there remembers it. I'm just memory of this.
And that was it. And
hat hall.
You did. So it was. Everybody had a story.
Yeah.
From being there or visiting there.
As you were working there, as the years went on, did you have kind of a lot of ownership of like different artists coming in and you curating what the space looked like and everything?
Oh gosh, yeah. I have to say that they gave me total carte blanche.
This one's so fun.
Which was really fun. I mean, some things, some artists you had to carry because you had to.
Yeah, you had like a contract, right?
Yeah. So you had to, or that all of the hotels carried, but other than that, I would have to say that they were pretty good about letting me bring in whomever I thought. And I think the biggest change came when I first started there with Anna Quinlivan. People would come and say, "Do you have SCAD artists?" Then all of a sudden, people would come and say, "Do you have Savannah artists?" Nobody was really saying, "Do you have SCAD artists anymore?"
Yeah.
They were looking for Savannah artists. And to me, that was a clue because SCAD had their own shop and had their own selling places.
Yeah.
We had SCAD alumni. That definitely we did. Kristen Baird, the jeweler, and to name just, one. Heather Young, to name another. But it was an opportunity then to carry Savannah artists.
Yeah.
So I looked for artists that, number one, I felt would sell at the location, because not every artist is going to sell at a location, and that's the reality of things.
Yeah, probably to a certain type of tourist who was staying there and coming through the gallery.
And local, because I worked with both.
Yeah.
I couldn't depend just on the hotel clientele or the tourist who would come there. I depended also on the locals.
Oh, okay, interesting. I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, so it was a little bit, it was working all the angles of it, and working with artists that weren't necessarily anywhere else in Savannah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I felt that at that location would do well. I mean, I was excited to bring in Julia Christian.
Yeah.
I'll never forget her opening. That was elbow to elbow.
Yeah.
I mean, literally elbow to elbow. Dottie Leatherwood from Tybee Island.
Yeah, I love her work.
Her work is amazing. Just really a lot. And I then did the Savannah series every year. I called it the Savannah series, which allowed me then to bring in artists that weren't on our roster, but I could showcase them there during the Savannah series.
That must have been really fun.
Oh, it was loads of fun.
Yeah.
It was loads of fun.
And when people do really well, you feel really proud. Like you...
Oh, no, it was really good. It allowed me to open the doors of the mansion to local artists.
Yeah. Yes, you changed like the reputation of that space amongst locals and the whole local art community and everything.
So I was talking to a mutual friend that you and I have about the space, and we were saying, when she was working there at the gallery, we were saying, God, it was a small space, but boy, we filled that to the, up to the hill.
Yeah.
We did really well filling that up with artwork.
You did. It's smart to have those kind of movable walls inside.
They were movable, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Give you some more surface area of wall space in there.
But even still, there were big pieces. Yeah. Big pieces there.
Yeah, it was a small room when it was busy with people looking around.
That was great. And I was, Kessler allowed me the opportunity to open the doors because we were doing well too.
Yeah.
I mean, so it worked well. It was fun to open the door to other local artists, to local clientele, to know, hey, you can come here and find something, or just to look. It was a fun space to give this opportunity to people.
Do you have interest in going forward, that you still have this itch of curation that you
Oh gosh, yes. I don't think you
there is totally a thing, especially in Starland now, where there's just sort of open raw spaces where you, if you want it, where you could like pick a venue and you could choose artists and go into like independent curation.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. Talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But honestly, this year for me, I'm calling it the year of me. I want to spend more time in the studio and build up my body of work.
Yeah.
Which was always one of my main intentions in moving up to Savannah, is to do the circle, and started off with painting, and to go back doing full-time painting.
What do you want to work on? Do you have a series in mind?
God, there's so much. Well, you've seen the beginning of the Daffin Park. I thought I had sort of finished it, and then I was scrolling through photographs and things, and I was like, oh, Daffin Park's not finished.
Yeah, so we'll post some photos of these, but basically, so you have a series you're starting of square, they're all the same size, these square
16 by 16 wooden panels.
Yeah. Are they all kind of at like sunrise or sunset?
Yeah, sort of like a time of day. So the ones you're seeing right now are sort of like right before, at sunrise, where you still see the moon, then middle of the day, then nighttime. So it's Daffin Park almost at the same angle almost, and I just go in and look at it, and then I photograph after. When I work, and I don't always work from a photograph, but when I do work from the photograph, I have to take the photograph.
Yeah.
I have to be there, I have to smell it, I have to see it, and it goes into a TIFF format into my brain and all my senses. So there are a couple of things that I took, and I was like, you know what? I think there are 2 more paintings.
Yeah, you saw more.
Yeah.
I like that too. I think Yeah, even if you're working from a photo, just to know that like the whole thing was you, from soup to nuts. You did the photo.
You did the whole thing,
yeah.
because, like I said, you breathe it, you smell it, you see it, you the whole thing.
And you picked the exact space and angle and moment that you wanted to do. It wasn't somebody else's photo.
No,
Yeah.
and sometimes you're just walking and you go, aha, look at that. You know what? Here it is, and it takes you by surprise. And, when nature does that to you, just a lot of times you're walking and you'll go, takes you by surprise. So I do like working in series sometimes. I have my little collection of the things we keep, and that comes from, I still have all those things, from drawers.
You've kept the things.
I have things there from when I was in 8th grade. I have, there's a keychain in one of them that has the first key, the only key I ever had to my childhood home, in the keychain that my father gave me when he gave me the key to the house. Wow. I have a collection of keys that I don't know what they go to, and I still keep them, because you're like, they'll go to something, but they're not going to go to anything. I don't even know what they go for, but I'll think about it later, and I put them in a little bowl and back in the drawer or back in the box. They're still there.
Yeah.
They're still there. There's, a watch without a band, just a bunch of stuff that you still have that you're going to think about later.
Yeah, I'll post a photo of this series. They're like very sweet, these tiny little paintings, and you have them displayed where they're all together, which I feel like is a nice impact.
Yeah, and they all come with, they still need to be finished in the sense that they will all have a little story behind them.
Yeah, that's great.
Because they all have a little story. The little money change things that your grandmother, at least my grandmother used to do.
Like a really pretty embroidered little coin purse.
A coin purse. Yeah. I still have them.
I always love those too.
Yeah. So, I have the comb and brush set, broken comb, and I did end up painting it with the broken comb.
They're kind of nostalgic dressing tables.
The dressing table thing. So I still have. And then when I finished setting up the still life, I scooped it up, put it back in the drawer, and there they are. And they have been traveling with me, through many homes.
Kind of like to ask people as far as like sizes of paintings, because I think people tend to, maybe you really like painting big and it's hard to paint small, or vice versa. So I'm curious if you like to mix it up a lot with extreme small and extreme big, or do you have a sweet spot of paintings?
I mix it up a lot.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with space. So I've done a couple of, there's a 4 foot by 5 foot one that's up in Boston. I've got, I think this one in my room is like 5 foot by 5 feet. But the thing is space. So it's like, do you have the space, number one, to paint it in? Though I painted them in small areas, because my studios have always been small.
Building the stretcher bars for it.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal for me necessarily. I don't mind that part. The thing is, where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
A lot of the homes don't have that much space anymore of where to put these things. So, yes, a big painting is beautiful. Yeah. It's really great. But, but I've gone into smaller and medium-sized paintings only because of convenience.
So the one in Boston, did you have to ship that there?
Yeah.
Painting? Yeah, that's a whole other aspect.
Yeah, that's a whole other. I don't like shipping. There's one shipper that I will use all the time, but like he says, once it's out of my hands, that's it.
Yeah. For the coming year, like professionally, any goals or like manifestations you want to put out there that you're trying to do? So you talked about this, that you're continuing on with your Daffin painting series.
Yeah.
What else?
Oh gosh. I mean, part of my continuing the painting and spending more time in the studio and exploring. I mean, the Daffin Park series is just part of it, but just exploring how, what I used to do, which was, okay, finish this, now I'm going to start with that. Maybe I'll go back and do another watercolor. Yeah. Maybe I'll play around with this. But I would like to build up a body of work again and see where to show it.
Yeah.
So some of the exploration I'm doing right now is to see what opportunities are there here in Savannah, if there are any. And
you talked about that you like having a project or a deadline to work towards. So sometimes you need to like pick you need to set on a date and a place first, and then you can churn out the paintings.
Actually, the truth of the matter is that once I finish, there are a couple of paintings that I have in mind to do. Once I finish that, then I can say, okay, I have this group here.
Yeah.
Let me really think about where I'm going to place them or where I would like to show them, and to do that. I have sold a lot through Instagram.
That's great.
Which is really good. A lot of it has been unexpected.
Yeah.
So that's been really nice. But I think that's great. But then when you go back and say, oh, I'm missing 2 paintings, and then you're like, oh, they sold through Instagram. Oh, I lost through this.
Yeah, if somebody's curious and wants to reach out to you to see what you have available to sell, how should they do that? How should they get in touch?
Probably direct message me.
Okay.
Probably the best way is through Instagram. Do the messaging there. I mean, you could send me a text or whatever, but a lot of times if I don't recognize the number,
yeah,
I'm not going to look at it. But almost all of my sales have been actually through direct message.
Okay.
Hey, is this available for sale? And you're like, gee, I hadn't
Yeah.
thought about it, but okay, yes.
I love that the series that you do of Daffin is so interesting because it's just not a typical Savannah site or scene for tourists coming through. They might have a whole week vacation in Savannah and never hear of Daffin Park, but it's such a beloved site for people who live here. So it's such an interesting place to be painting.
And I love it because you have this sense of space.
Yeah.
There aren't these tall buildings around it, because even Forsyth Park, and for 9 years I faced Forsyth Park.
Yeah.
But you saw the end of the park and there were buildings. I mean, you're in the middle of Daffin Park and you have space.
Yeah, it's vast.
It is really vast, and I really love that. And if you go there at night on a full moon and you see all the stars and it's just it's like
dramatic
space.
I like how there's the 2 sides of it. The huge vast field spaces, and then in the middle is that cool oak tree lane that's reminiscent of Wormslow. It's cool.
Yeah, isn't that great? I think that part is really great. So I'd like to do also see about working with other artists too. I'm big on artist networking. I was listening this morning to a podcast from Australia on art, and they were talking about reestablishing the salons. Yeah. And I was going, that's a pretty cool concept there.
I love that.
It was something that to a degree I had in Miami. It was, where about once a month or once every 2 months I'd hold a dinner party, but I could seat 14 in that dining room without an issue. Can't do it here. I can do 8, maybe tightly, but that salon idea where it was okay to talk about everything as long as you did not get insulting, but you could talk about everything.
That's the one ground rule.
Yeah, and so I was like, that would be really good to be able to discuss, art, music, philosophy, concepts. We did it in Spain all the time.
Yeah.
And like I said, I continued it to a great degree, to a lot, really, in Miami. And I haven't found that here, and it's something that I would like to build up.
That would be great here, especially because Savannah is thought to be, in the U.S., it's kind of, it is sort of a European style city. Uh-huh. So I love the idea of carrying in this old classic creative European tradition. Salons here. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. So, and in terms of, I want to, this is the year for really me to get back to the discipline. And art is a discipline.
Yeah, the regular working.
I
love that. Well, it's a great note to end on. This has been really fun speaking to you today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was great to have you here. This is one of my favorite rooms.
Yeah, we're in this beautiful sunroom.
So thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah, thank you. So everyone, this has been Carmen Aguirre, and I will post links to her Instagram and to her website, but her Instagram is better for looking at her current paintings. Thank you so much, Carmen, for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Tamara.
Absolutely.